Have you ever looked at someone who seems to have it all figured out? You know, the great career, the nice house, stable family, everything looks perfect. And then maybe in their late 40s or 50s, boom, something just breaks.
Yeah.
They have a meltdown, crash the car, quit the job they worked decades for. It seems to come out of nowhere.
It does seem that way, doesn't it?
So the big question we're diving into today is why? Why does that deep old pain, the stuff that maybe started way back in childhood, only really explode decades later, right when life is supposed to be safe and settled?
It's a fascinating question, and it kind of turns our usual thinking about emotions upside down.
Yeah.
The core idea, really, is that our basic human biology is wired for survival above everything else, not necessarily for self-awareness.
Survival over awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The body's first job, its most urgent task, is just to keep going, to function, to move forward. The idea of pausing, reflecting, really digging into, a deep internal mess,
Yeah.
that's a luxury.
Yeah.
And it's a luxury the system immediately puts on hold when there's a perceived threat.
Okay, let's really unpack that because it changes everything, doesn't it? If survival trumps awareness, our whole emotional history looks different. It's like our mind prioritizes just functionality over actual psychological health.
Precisely. It's a biological trade-off. We're actually incredibly good at putting off our psychological reckoning. So our mission today is to explore those survival tactics, these often really painful strategies we develop when we're young. They act like psychological shields, keeping us going sometimes for 30, maybe 40 years. Until the outside world finally feels stable enough, safe enough, that the internal stuff we've locked away, well, it can finally afford to come out. Or maybe it just bursts out.
That makes sense. It sets the stage perfectly. So
Yeah.
let's go back to the start, to when that emotional debt, as you called it, is first incurred.
Right. So imagine a child in a really difficult, maybe even terrible situation. Maybe a home with a parent who's violent or severely depressed or an alcoholic or just emotionally absent. A really tough spot for a kid.
Yeah. Okay. Now, logically, as an outsider, you'd think the child would react to the reality of it. See the unfairness, feel sad, maybe angry. You'd expect them to focus on the problem.
That's what seems rational, yes. A proportionate response to the trauma.
But that's not what happens.
Often, no. Because the child system literally can't afford it. Think about it. You don't sit down and write your memoirs in the middle of a firefight, do you?
No, definitely not.
The survival instinct just takes over. The absolute priority is to keep going. There's no bandwidth, no safety for processing or grieving or even fully acknowledging how bad things are. That would just shut them down.
And in that moment, what's the biggest internal danger to just keeping going?
It's actually feeling sorry for yourself. Self-compassion.
Really? Self-compassion is dangerous.
In that specific context, for a very young child who feels powerless and alone, yes, it's described in some of our reading as a very dangerous thing indeed. If that 5-year-old truly let themselves feel the full horror of their situation, the grief over the love they're missing, they might just stop functioning, stop eating, stop engaging. Survival demands they shut that down, box it up, ignore it.
So functionality first. And if the mind can't afford to collapse, it has to build defenses, like really strong ones. It sounds less like psychology and more like emergency battlefield engineering.
That's a great way to put it. And the defenses, the coping strategies, are often kind of staggering in how clever and counterintuitive they are.
Yeah.
One of the main ones we see is this combination of parental idealization and self-blame.
Okay, explain that. It sounds completely backward. Why would a child start thinking good things about a parent who's hurting them or neglecting them?
Because it's functionally safer. For a little kid, the parent is the world. They provide food, shelter, safety, or they're supposed to. If the child accepts that this all-powerful figure is randomly cruel or dangerously unstable, then the whole universe feels random and terrifying. That level of fear is unbearable.
Okay. So the mind does a quick edit.
Exactly. It performs a critical adjustment.
Yeah.
It's much less terrifying to believe the parent is somehow justified. Their anger, their shouting, even their violence. It must be deserved.
Yeah.
The parent remains fundamentally good, or at least understandable, in this view.
So it preserves a sense of order in the world. The parent is okay, the world makes sense. But the cost.
Oh, the cost is huge. To make that work, the child has to turn the blame inward. That leads to intense internal scapegoating. Meaning instead of feeling pity for themselves for what they're lacking or suffering, they start blaming themselves. I must be the problem. I made them angry. I deserved it. I'm the defective one.
Why is that preferable?
Because if you're the problem, maybe you can fix it. Maybe you can be better, quieter, smarter, whatever it takes to stop the bad stuff. It gives a sliver of control back, even if it's an illusion based on self-blame. Accepting the parent is fundamentally flawed leaves the child utterly powerless.
I see the grim logic there. You get a sense of control, but you absorb all the toxicity, the shame. Okay, what if they can't internalize it like that? What else do they do?
Then you often see the opposite strategy, which is constant motion. Distraction through overactivity, basically trying to outrun the despair.
How does that look?
It's about creating so much noise, so much activity on the outside that you don't have to hear the buzz inside, the fear, the sadness.
So that could be the kid who becomes a super overachiever at school, trying to earn the approval they don't get at home.
Exactly. Or it could be the kid who's always acting out, breaking things, getting into trouble, high-risk behaviors.
Two sides of the same coin.
Fundamentally, yes. The underlying drive is the same. Do anything except sit still and feel what's really going on inside. Whether it's getting straight A's or later in life, maybe it morphs into workaholism or obsessive exercise or getting deeply lost in politics or even substance use, it's all distraction. There's this really poignant image of the child just staring straight ahead, can't look back at the past, can't look down into the emotional void, just focus on one thing, survival, powered by constant, relentless activity.
That protective armor, that survival mode.
Yeah.
It sounds incredibly strong. And you're saying it doesn't just fade away after childhood. It can last for decades.
Oh, absolutely. It can last for a very, very long time indeed. Because think about it. When do most people feel genuinely externally secure? It's usually not right at 18.
Right. There's still college, finding a job, paying rent.
Exactly. The survival mission just shifts focus. It doesn't end. The 20s and 30s often become this intense second phase of survival.
Right.
You're not just building a career, you're trying to build an external fortress.
The fortress against what?
Against the internal chaos, the stuff you packed away years ago. You're trying to create a life so solid, so stable on the outside, that it can finally contain or maybe permanently keep at bay the instability you carry inside.
So achieving those adult milestones, career, money, house, partner, it's not just about ambition, it's about psychological safety.
Very much so. Settling into a career, building up some savings, maybe buying a home, finding a stable partner, perhaps having kids. These become the concrete proof that you're safe now, that you've escaped the vulnerability of the past. There's often this subconscious driver. If I fail externally, if I lose the job or the house, then the internal dam will break. The old stuff will come flooding back.
Wow, that sounds exhausting. Living life constantly shoring up external defenses against an internal enemy you're pretending isn't there.
It is exhausting, and that's why the timeline often stretches into the 40s or 50s. That's when people finally have the mortgage mostly paid, the established career, the retirement savings. They've achieved, excellence at survival. They look solid, calm, even.
But all that success, the house, the money, the stable life, it doesn't actually erase the original trauma, does it? It's still in there somewhere, waiting.
Exactly. That's the crucial point. Despite the outward success, the person still carries the ingredients of madness inside us, as one source puts it. They were deeply affected, unmoored by cruelty years ago. And even though they seem fine, they might still feel, quietly, close to insanity at points. It's the inevitable result of too much suffering encountered too young. They're basically monuments to successful denial.
Okay, so then what triggers the shift? What finally happens when that external fortress, that seemingly perfect, safe life, feels complete?
That's the critical moment, the great psychological turning point. The armor, the constant state of alert needed for basic survival. It's not quite so necessary anymore. As the external world gets safer and safer, the internal world finally gets the permission it's been waiting for, maybe for decades. Permission to finally feel as troubled, as messy as it actually has been all along.
And that's the paradox, right? Someone might feel more unstable, more confused, maybe more emotionally raw at 45 than they did at 20, even though the bad stuff happened way back then.
Precisely. The fear, the sadness, the anger that was sealed away for so long, it finally starts to seep through. Or sometimes it bursts through the defenses that have started to crumble now that the external war is over.
And how does that emergence look? You said it's often dramatic.
It's rarely subtle, yeah. It can be really disruptive and often baffling to the person experiencing it and those around them. It often manifests in these sudden, almost symbolic actions.
Like what? Give us those examples.
Well, things like suddenly writing these long, very intense, maybe rambling letters to strangers, pouring out years of suppressed feelings, or acts of sort of low-key self-sabotage, like inexplicably crashing the car in a minor way, or suddenly bursting into tears in a public place, like the supermarket, for no apparent reason, overwhelmed by a feeling that seems disconnected from the present.
And the really alarming one you mentioned, developing sudden intense paranoia, like believing the government is watching them.
Yes, that can happen too. These aren't random breakdowns. They're manifestations of that old, buried feeling of profound unsafety and persecution. The legacy of the unkindness they experienced is finally breaking through, but often in a distorted, confusing form. The fear gets projected outward.
Okay, but here's the really counterintuitive part you mentioned earlier. This breakdown, this falling apart, it's not actually a sign of failure, is it?
No, paradoxically, it's a sign of psychological progress. It's a kind of achievement.
An achievement. How so?
It means the person has finally built up enough external safety, enough financial security, enough stability in their life that they can actually afford to be unwell internally. They've created a life strong enough that they won't literally starve or lose everything if they stop being perfectly functional for a while to finally deal with their own soul.
That's a really different way to look at a crisis. So they've achieved the safety needed to finally face the danger within.
You can put it that way, yes. And hopefully that crisis, that disruption, doesn't just lead to more self-sabotage. With luck, it points them towards help,
Towards therapy.
towards a consulting room of a good therapist, maybe a clinic,
Hmm.
somewhere safe. This is the space where that delayed self-awareness can finally start its work, where the story can finally be told.
The place where all that sadness, that loss, that feeling of being fundamentally unsafe that they've carried since they were tiny, it can finally be looked at, felt, and understood with someone who listens.
Exactly. The person finally feels secure enough in the present, materially, socially, to let out what might feel like a very, very long scream held back for decades.
Yeah.
They can finally begin to meet that old pain with the understanding, maybe even the compassion, that they needed and deserved right from the start. It's that final, crucial shift. Prioritizing awareness now that survival is, relatively speaking, secured.
It's a powerful journey from survival to awareness, even if it takes half a lifetime. But thinking about this mechanism, the idea that really processing deep trauma often requires achieving significant external stability first, what does that imply about, well, society more broadly?
That's a really important question to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
Because what we're describing, the ability to finally address this deep-seated trauma, which often involves time, energy, maybe significant financial resources for therapy or taking time off work,
Mm.
it really is a form of privilege, isn't it?
An economic and social luxury, in a way.
Yeah.
So if feeling externally safe, having that stable career, the home, the financial cushion, is almost a prerequisite for this kind of deep self-awareness to emerge, what does that mean for people or whole communities where that kind of external safety is constantly precarious, where it's unstable or simply out of reach for so many?
It suggests, doesn't it, that there could be vast numbers of people walking around, functioning, surviving incredibly well against the odds.
Still holding that line.
Still holding the line, exactly. But perhaps never getting the chance, the internal space or the external security, required to truly let down their guard and confront what they carry inside. They might remain perpetually, necessarily, stuck in survival mode.
Unable to ever really know themselves because the conditions for awareness were never met.
It's definitely something to think about, isn't it? As you look around at the world and maybe even reflect on your own life. Something for you to mull over.